Is the sun your worst enemy or your most misunderstood performance tool? Today, author and sun care founder Sylvain Horwood separates facts from fear so you can walk away with 5 moves to get healthier light without getting burned. Welcome back to The Advisor with Stacey Chillemi, where we turn insight into action. Today, we're unpacking the benefits and the misconceptions around the sun with Sylvain Horwood. He is Peru and he's the founder of it and the owner. And he also is an author of The Sun, the Energy, the Light, the Frequency. Stay with us because at the end, you're going to understand, and you're going to know about 5 practical things that you can do this week to set your body clock. And you can also enjoy sunlight and choose protection that actually fits your life. If you learned something new today, hit follow, drop 5 stars, and share this with one of your friends who needs smarter, more healthier sun habits. Now, Savon, welcome to The Advisor with Stacey Chillemi. I'm really excited to have you on our show. Can you give us a quick story about who you are, what you do, and why the sun became your mission?
Sure. So, yeah, like you said, I'm Sylvain, originally from the UK and now in Switzerland. And I grew up on a macrobiotic organic diet back in the 1980s in England before it was kind of cool, I guess. So, really grew up with this natural living and natural lifestyle. And yeah, moved to Switzerland around 10 years ago. And through that journey, ended up founding PURU. Which is now Switzerland's #1 natural sun care brand. And yeah, the sun is not your enemy, I think, as you said, right? It's the foundation of all life on Earth. So, it's certainly not to be feared, but should be respected and understood in terms of, not getting burnt and to treat it properly.
I love that. Now, what's the one misconception about sunlight you wish people would retire, and what is the youthful truth behind it?
Well, I think the main one is that it's dangerous, right? And I think that just doesn't really give the full picture, right? It's like saying that water is dangerous because you can drown, right?
Yeah.
And yes, it can be dangerous, right? But it's not necessarily the case. And I think you just need to make sure that you enjoy its benefits without overexposing yourself. And then when you have to spend prolonged time in the sun because you're playing sport or you're with family, kids love to spend time in the sun, running around on the beach, for example, right? And yeah, making sure you use a natural sun care to protect yourself and try and avoid toxins at the same time.
I love that. Now, does SPF 100 mean double the protection of like SPF 50? Help us understand the SPF without the marketing, because there's a lot of
Yeah,
hype.
so yeah, it's really the amount of time you can spend in the sun without getting burnt, right? So it's a measurement of that essentially, right? So yeah, SPF 100. I think there is some products now that market it as that. So it
Okay.
would mean essentially, depending on the type of sunscreen, right? There's two broad types, and so only certain ingredients can be used to put that SPF label on the product. And there's chemical based and mineral based. And mineral based in general means more product is more protection, and that sort of puts a physical barrier on top of the skin that reflects the and scatters the UV waves, as opposed to chemical-based sunscreen, which use typically nanoparticles, which go under your skin barrier, and that
Mhm.
causes a chemical reaction with the sun's waves. And the offset of that is heat, but also some other types of chemicals that you probably wouldn't want to have on your skin, right? So, yeah,
Right.
it very much depends on the type of ingredients, right? Which just how it can be called that, but it will determine how long you can spend in the sun before getting burnt, essentially.
Now, is all sun bad versus you need tons of sun? Like, how do everyday people find the sane middle?
Yeah, so like I said, right, sun is essential to life, right? So and you should get some of it, right? Your eyes, for example, have the most receptors in your body and is the first really thing in your body that touches the sun, right? And your eyes receive sunlight, right? It comes into your eyes. So you should definitely use that cue, right? And it helps you wake you up, and getting the full spectrum of light into your eyes can help you wake up, but also can help you sleep. So it's fundamental to get some. And again, it's just not getting burnt, right? Because that hurts for a reason, and we generally don't want to do things that causes us pain. But yeah, it's really getting the right amount, I think, like with anything, right? There's a right a medium to receiving sunlight and finding that middle amount that gives you the benefits, but without the pain.
I agree with you. Now, what does the reef state or lake safe actually mean in plain English?
So yeah, it's a bit of marketing, right? But the
Yeah.
reef safe part, which is certainly the bigger issue right now, because certain countries and jurisdictions have started banning certain chemical sunscreen ingredients. So, for
Hmm.
example, Hawaii, even the state of Florida, I think, has banned one particular ingredient, and then Thailand, Palau, and some Caribbean islands, because those chemical sunscreen ingredients typically use nanoparticles, and that enters into this coral reefs and then damages that. And yeah, that can cause bleaching and affect the tourism dollars, of course, of those places. So yeah, it's really being mindful of that. But if it can damage that, then it's also worth thinking about how it can damage your skin as well, right?
Exactly. Yes, 100%. Now, vitamin D is real, but can supplements replace the light exposure entirely? Like, where do you draw the line between biology and the hype?
Yeah, so vitamin D is essential again, right? There's a kind of higher level way of thinking about it as well for me, where the sun just really causes a whole series of energetic processes that activate the body, right? Vitamin D, of course, is important for skin and certain types, but it's actually doing a lot more than that, right? And you can think of it, as a more an alchemy of energetic production in your body that hits all of your body, right?
Yeah,
When it comes to supplements, obviously they're all different, so it very much depends. You can get more natural ones and less natural ones. For me, many of them, even though they say vitamin D, they won't actually be exactly vitamin D, right? There's a
right.
certain kind of spectrum essentially where you can call something vitamin D, but it's not exactly the same, chemically or in a compound kind of way. And then it
Yeah,
also depends on how it's produced, right? There actually aren't a lot of ingredients that go into making some of these chemical compounds that you wouldn't want to hear that they were in there, for example, right? So yeah, I think sometimes these things can provide some benefit, right? And it very much depends. But the best way is to just get some sunlight, right? And for me, I think some sunlight is better than none. So even if you're only getting unable to get 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, that's better than none at all. And even that direct sunlight, right? That gives you the full spectrum of energetic light and all of the colors, essentially, right? And all of the wavelengths. And that, yeah, provides benefits to all of your body, right? Whereas the UV rays hit the more of the surface of your skin because they're smaller wavelengths. The longer red type wavelengths penetrate your body deeper, so into your heart and your blood and your internal organs.
yeah. Well, let's flip into the benefits. Like for many of us, morning light improves the mood and sleep. But what does the practical way of doing this, like, what's the safe way of doing this?
So, yeah, I mean, for sure, in the morning, you want to receive some sunlight in your eyes, right? Obviously, looking directly at the sun is not recommended, right?
Yeah.
Despite sun gazing has been, historically a practice across different, religions and cultures in the past, and you certainly can't look directly at the sun at most times of the day because your eyes will instinctively look away, right? Your
Mhm.
body and your instincts will not allow you to do that, right? It will instantly look away. But some of the soft light early in the morning, or the very last light at night from the sun, it is possible to do that, right? Obviously, a big word of caution, right? If you've not done it before, then really go to the extremes of morning and the extremes of night when the sun is very much about to disappear or rise to try doing that. But you don't need to look at the sun to get sunlight into your eyes, right? You can just, as
Right.
long as you're looking horizontally, there is light coming into your eyes, right? And that, yeah,
Yes.
like you said, enables you to wake, and also it's a kind of a message as well, right? The sun is telling you that the start of the day, and that enables your body to prepare itself for a full day of energetic moves, essentially, right? Your body needs to prepare itself and say, hey, let's energize and get ready for a whole day of movement and activity. And that's what you want to do, right? Without, yeah, of course, causing any kind of harm and danger and precaution when it comes to, sunlight in your eyes. But yeah, like I said, with all the waves as well, and the deeper wavelengths, like the reds, for example, are more prominent during sunrise and sunset. So there you get that more feeling in your body as well, right? And again, it's just that I mean, some say that can even prepare you for more sunlight during the day as well, right? To sort of help your body prepare itself. And also being cautious around sunglasses, right? Because that can block the obviously direct sunlight coming into your eyes, and then that gives your body different cues about how light it is outside, the intensity of sunlight. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying don't wear sunglasses, right? I think there's a use case for them, certainly in certain ways, right? But you can also not wear them all day, essentially, right? And allow some sunlight into your eyes during the day without causing any damage.
Now, for different skin phototypes, like how should we have safe exposure, like to windows and change?
Yeah, so darker skin types, for example, have more pigment, right? Also known as the specific pigment known as melanin.
Mhm.
And yeah, this means that you can spend more time in the sun without getting burnt. That pigment allows that. But it also means the other side of it, you need to spend more time in the sun to get that vitamin D production and that energetic chemical production in your body as well, right? So um, I think there is some, validity in that more sun gives you more of that pigment, essentially, right? So, I mean, that's visually evident as well, right? If you spend time in the sun, you do get a color, essentially, right? You do go brown, right?
Yes.
And it's really just understanding your own skin type, your exposure, and getting the right amount and building up a resistance, right? And certainly, if you know you're going to go on holiday, and you're going to spend or you're going to spend more intense time in the sun in the future, it's worth building up a bit of a resistance before you go, right? Rather than kind of, you can spend 9 months of the year if you live in a country that has little sunlight or lots of cloud cover, like England, for example, typically, and then you can go on south of Spain or a tropical island, and yeah, your body and your skin is just not prepared for the sun, right? So you
Right.
can also try and build up a bit of a resistance, right? And you still get sun, obviously filtered through the clouds when there's cloud cover, right? So it's also
Right.
just spending more time outside, getting some light onto your skin, and getting that exposure and building up a resistance to enable yourself to have more if you have that lighter complexion.
Yeah, definitely. Now, what does a gradual exposure plan look like after a long winter being indoors?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily recommend a long winter indoors, right? I mean, it's cold, but in Switzerland, for example, right, many people still spend a lot of time outside in the winter, right? Skiing, for example, but
Yeah.
also, even it's known for its cold, right? But when you go to the top of the mountain, even in November and early December, certainly in February, then during midday, 1,000 or even 2,000 meters up or more, yeah, it can feel like a spring day. So if you're able to get it's up to a mountain, for example, if it's within your reach, then you
Yeah.
then do that. But also, like I said, just get some sun exposure during the day, right? As long as it's light outside, there's some light touching your skin, right? Look, providing there is light outside, right? You can see and it's not pitch black, then there is light there, right? So yeah. But otherwise, if it's really not possible because it's just too cold or the cloud cover is just too bad or it's unbearable, then it's really when the sun starts coming out, right? And many cultures around the world have festivals around the sun coming back, right? So many festivals that your city may have, and different countries actually. mimic the celestial bodies in the sky, right? And when the sun's coming back, there is generally some kind of event outside. Certainly in villages in Switzerland, they all go crazy for the kind of returning of the sun in late January, early February, right? And there's this, yeah, the Swiss actually go nuts. There's this whole kind of fuckness. I'm not sure if I said that right, but it's kind of this festival around Switzerland where they for 1 week or one day of the year they all go crazy, right? They stop the pretense of being all cool and collected and go nuts, right? But yeah, there is this sort of times in spring when the sun starts to come back, right? And you feel that warmth, then just get some sun, right? Like I said, even if it's only for a minute, right? Some is better than none, and
Yes.
just try and get that and try and build up a slow resistance for the summer, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Now, seasonal strategies, like what changes in summer versus winter or urban desk jobs versus outdoor work? What's the difference?
Well, I mean, if you're spending different times in the sun, right? Certainly, in terms of general health, right? Indoors, you're exposed to the air conditioning as well, right?
Hmm.
So, one example in London, when I worked in banking in London, right? I used to work in the city of London where, it's typically more outside, right? So the buildings, you walk outside during lunchtime, and this type of thing. And then at one point I moved to Canary Wharf, which is the little sort of island just outside of London where all the the really tall bank buildings are, right? And I
Yeah.
didn't realize, but after a few months, I found myself feeling sick, right? Physically sick. And I noticed that I would get on the tube, the underground train, get to the office. You go up to your building directly from the train, so you don't even get to go outside, right? And then all of the places to grab lunch are also in the air conditioning, right? So I noticed for a few months or so, I was not even getting any fresh air, right? Let alone sunlight. Um, so I think that's one thing that you have to be mindful as well, right? It's just getting fresh air and getting sunlight, but also being around nature, right? There's the concept of grounding, which is directly touching the earth, and that's more of a neutral, energetic vibration, right? Which can literally ground you, right? But also, it's not you don't have to just physically take off your socks and put your feet in the ground, right? When it's not convenient or which may invite some strange looks, right? If you did it in a public park when it's not even too hot, you can just be amongst the trees and the forest, right? So going
Yeah.
for a walk in nature, there you will experience, all the energetic vibrations that come off the trees, even rocks and that kind of thing, right? And that provides you with some grounding energy as well, right? And helps you give you more clarity, right? As long as you're avoiding toxins as well when you're eating and foods and drink and a general lifestyle being non-toxic, then you can really benefit from being in nature and help you, heal and give you more energy.
Right. Oh, 100%. Now, when it comes to protection, where do people get stuck? Like, and when it comes to products, clothing, shade, and reapplication and stuff like that.
Well, I think yeah, everything's different, right? Again, there's a lot of variables when it comes to clothing, and certainly, yeah, you can use clothing to protect yourself effectively. There is even more, I think, SPF clothing now that you can buy, right? If it's
Yeah.
something that really bothers you. But I think for me, clothing is an energetic vibration as well, right? So I try to buy as much as possible, cotton or even organic cotton clothing, um,
Mhm.
for convenience, but also I find it provides a better energetic field, essentially, right? We all have
Yeah.
this energetic field and that we portray, right? And that's even the light that you reflect that goes into people's eyes is energetic waves and light waves, essentially, right? And
Hmm.
if you're wearing more natural clothing, then it can enhance your energetic field and your waves and the way you're perceived. Whereas a lot of synthetic clothing, nylons, which is essentially just plastic, right? Which is a kind of oil, really, right? It comes from a processed oil, right? Which is a kind of dead matter, if you like, that has a lower energetic vibration, and that comes across worse, right? But also just allowing your skin to breathe, right? If you're sweating, doing sports, that kind of thing, then wearing a more natural clothing can really help that. Yeah.
Now, when it comes to mineral versus chemical sunscreens, what's the 101 for families who want effective, gentle options?
So yeah, there's one major difference between chemical and mineral-based sunscreens, right? The chemical sunscreens typically use nanoparticles, and that causes a chemical reaction with the UV waves. And that, yeah, the one offset for that is heat, but also it's known to also offset aldehydes as well, like formaldehyde, for example, right? But that
Mhm.
and the other ingredients in the chemical sunscreen ingredients in bottles can basically get straight into your bloodstream, right? Is nanoparticles, which is for me is another toxin into your body, which means you have to detox it, right? And it's known to cause skin damage, right? Obviously, there's lots of different studies on this and different beliefs, but certainly the banning of certain chemical sunscreen ingredients in places with coral reefs that it damages certainly suggests that if it's damaging that natural aquatic life, then it can cause damage to your skin as well, right?
Yeah.
Whereas mineral-based sunscreen, and there's two main types, that puts more of a physical barrier on top of the skin, and that reflects and scatters the UV waves away from your skin. And certainly we use a non-nanometric zinc oxide in our sunscreen, and we feel that's the safest one for your skin, but also for nature. And like I said, it's a non-nanometric, so it very much sits more on top of the skin, doesn't get absorbed. But also the other ingredients we have, we only have 6 or 7 ingredients in our different formulas, and they're all readable and naturally derived and certified by Europe's biggest certifying body called EcoCert, and we have the highest rating with them called Cosmos Organic, right?
That's wonderful. Now, how do we read a label quickly? Like, what are the top three things you should look for? And also the top three red flags.
Yeah, sure. And this is one of the reasons I founded PURU, right? Because when I first came to Switzerland around 10 years ago, I initially found it hard to find natural products, right? And
Hmm.
yeah, part of the challenge was the products written in German on the labels, right? For sure. And like a bit of a
Yeah.
culture shock around that
Hmm.
initially. And I really wanted to see something that said 100% natural. And if I could see that, then it would mean I wouldn't have to spend hours taking pictures of ingredients, going home, translating it, and this type of thing, right? So that's really
Uh,
where the idea was born out of that, to sort of like, for me, a convenience for me, not having to spend either too much time in the store or at home doing research, and just being able to trust that it says what it is, and it is all natural, right? Obviously,
mhm.
now you do have certain apps, right? Really popular in Europe is one called Yuka, Yuka, and there you can just scan the barcode and it will give you a kind of rating. Even there, I think you should remain cautious, right? It does food as well as cosmetic products, and it kind of labels, all sugars as the same, even in an apple, for example, it will kind of label that as the same kind of sugar as a white refined sugar. And certainly in my book, that's a completely different thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, some caution still needs to be applied when it comes
Yeah.
to doing these types of apps, because they have their own way of interpreting ingredients and that kind of thing. So for me, yeah, it's definitely looking for 100% natural. Things to be careful of is the appearance of natural, right? And very vague marketing terms.
Yeah.
So yeah, if it just says natural, then that can be a red flag to look into it further. But also in general, right? The other thing that I look for is just a long list of ingredients, right? That you can't understand. If you need a degree in something, in some sort of science degree, right, to read all of the ingredients and research it, then it's certainly a suggestion that it may not be okay. And if you've got a low number of readable ingredients, where they also are very open about it, right? Most websites still won't show you all of the ingredients on their website, right? We do that. We show you every ingredient, and even the ones where we have to, put the scientific term that may not be too well known, because that's the inky way to have a sort of standard of ingredient names. We still try and put all of the, original plant name that most people have heard of in brackets next to that, so you can read it, right? And you can understand that it's, you know, not some strange thing, and it's actually just a sunflower seed or whatever it may be, right?
Right, exactly. Now, what's a realistic reapplication strategy when it comes to like, communicating on a hike or, going to the beach, how many times should the application, be applied?
Yeah, it depends, right? With our mineral-based sunscreen, if you're used to using a chemical sunscreen, then we do say new sunscreen, new habits. And a mineral-based sunscreen works in terms of more product is more protection. So,
Yeah.
reapplying certainly more immediately if you have lighter skin can work, but also more frequently, right? But really, it's about understanding the environment, all the different factors and variations in the environment where you are, your own skin, and really monitoring yourself, right? When you feel that kind of red pain on your skin, right, that maybe
Mhm.
mean that you could be getting burnt, that's the time to either take some shade and or put some more protection on. So really, it's just being mindful of the different variables, right? And that can be at high altitude, over snow and water that reflects more of the UV waves, your skin type, even the kind of cloud cover, where you are, what clothes you're wearing, all those kind of things, and just monitoring, right? Monitoring, how long you've been in the sun, and monitoring your skin and keeping an eye on it, right? Even asking your friends, right? I mean, I'm the one guy that can't get sunburnt, right? I always say that, so I'm always asking my family, am I looking red? And that type of thing, right? And so really doing that, and my skin actually goes quite red even if I've had some mild amount of sun during the day, mine goes quite red anyway, right? Quite quickly. In the morning, that will turn brown, but
Hmm.
it can. I just have to make sure that I don't get burnt, of course, right? Because that's a part of
Yeah.
our ethos and grounding. So, yeah, just looking at the different variations and monitoring yourself, but also using the assistance of others.
Right, exactly. Now, besides the sunscreen, like hats, sunglasses, UPF clothing, and shades, can you rank them by impact, like for day-to-day life?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in generally, right, most different types of things that put you in the shade will block a considerable amount of the sun, right? If you
Mhm.
if you're seeing that it's causing shade, and you can see that that sort of direct sunlight is not hitting the surface of your skin, then you're going to be able to spend considerable amount more time like that, right? Obviously,
Right.
it depends, right? Obviously, if you're inside a building, and the only light you can see is coming through the window, that's going
Hmm.
to be considerably filtering out most of the UV and certainly the sunlight, right?
Right.
Um, windows not only filter a lot of the sunlight and UV, but also redirect it, right, as well. So it's certainly where you would receive less, but when it comes to different hats and shades and umbrellas, then yeah, providing you're in the shade, then it's going to block a considerable amount. But again, it's the same ethos, right? Look at
Right.
your skin, how much time you're spending in the shade, and how much you can take, right? We're all different, we're all individual. So it's really understanding yourself and what you can stand and what works for you, right?
Exactly, exactly. Now, for the listeners were promised five concrete actions. So, Sylvain, can you give us, what are your five, ways for smarter sun to kind of live in the sun, in the best way possible. So, if you had to think about like five different ways, what are your five for smart sun, things that you would like people to know about?
Yeah, I think the most important one, right? Bearing in mind that sun is so important to all life on Earth, and without it, we wouldn't exist, is to get some sun, right? And I think it doesn't mean that you have to spend all day in the sun, right? And that some people do enjoy that, right? And that's
Yeah.
fine. I think we're all different, but getting some sunlight is better than none. So even if you're only able to get small snippets throughout the day, and even micro dosing in a way like that actually is pretty good, right? You could even say that's number two, right? Get some
Mhm.
and micro dose, right? And getting it at different points of the day, right? And giving your body those different energetic light cues from the sun. So
Right.
first thing in the morning, get some fresh air if you can. Um, get some sunlight into your eyes, obviously without directly looking at the sun. Just allow sunlight into your eyes, and if you can see outside and it's light outside and you're outside, then some sun is entering your eyes, right? Because you can see.
Mhm.
So get some, and just do it throughout the day, right? Even midday when it's most intense, you can get some and let your skin expose to the sun and really, and like we said, monitor it and do that throughout the day, right? Um, and really, I think, yeah, like we've said, again, number three could be just understanding yourself and the different variations in the environment, right? Monitoring yourself, looking at the exposure and how much time you get and make sure that you don't get burnt, right? And certainly if you do, then think about how it happened, and why it happened and try and avoid that in the future, right? And then you could say number four is use a sunscreen, right? And that would be a part of the learning process. And yeah, certainly, obviously, I'm biased, of course, but I'm in this because I genuinely believe it, right? Of course, and
Yes.
use 100% natural sunscreen that's mineral based, and certainly, like I said, we believe that the non-nanometric zinc oxide is the best mineral based sunscreen and safest for your skin. And environment, right? So use a sunscreen, use a natural sunscreen, mineral based, the best one available to you. And yeah, also, back to the third one, monitor it and keep an eye on it, right?
Yeah.
In terms of number five, then I would say, yeah, just be mindful of sunglasses as well, right? So
Hmm.
I think sunglasses have their place, right? Certainly, if you're doing downhill cycling, for example, then it's or you're skiing, then it's definitely needed, right? For safety aspects and even required, to see.
Yeah.
And but just be mindful of not to wear sunglasses all day, right? One
Right.
trick, for example, I do when I'm skiing, is when I get on the ski lift, I ensure that I take off the goggles, right, or the sunglasses I'm wearing on the ski lift. Not only does that avoid the panda eye look that you can get right from a
Mhm.
week or for a long time skiing, but it also then allows more of your skin and your eyes to receive some sunlight, right? And not only that gives your body better energetic cues to protect itself, but also, yeah, just to give you more energy, right? And even like when I'm cycling as well, it's certainly better to, or well, essential when you're going downhill, right? You don't want to get a sort of fly in your eye when you're racing
Yeah.
down the mountain, right? But when you're going up the hill, it's generally not as required, right? So,
Right.
I buy the right type of sunglasses and try and lift them off ones that I'm able to lift off easily when I'm going uphill. And
Right.
actually, there's on sunglasses as well, there's lots of different types of sunglasses, right? Lots of different ones that do different types of filtering, so to get the right type of sunglasses. And actually in my book that I published on the sun, um, there is a whole section on the different types of lenses you can buy and what they do and the different types of that you can use and for different types of scenarios and that type of thing.
Can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Sure, yeah. So, in brief, right? It's a just under 100-page book or around that about why the sun is good for you, right? And why you should get some and without getting burnt, right? That's the overriding message, of course.
Hmm.
But, really, I think, I was very looking kind of long and hard at the work I was doing every day on this company, right? And initially, certainly setting up PURU, almost 7 years ago, we just wanted to do something entrepreneurial, and it was one of my
Hmm.
passions, of course. But kind of looking, over time, at more deeper meaning and purpose in my own existence, right, in my own life,
Yeah.
and seeing that as doing this every day and working so hard and promoting this message every day, right, about sun care and protecting the environment. I kind of saw it as a natural progression on trying to educate people on the sun, right? And seeing that as my, higher meaning and purpose, if you like, right? Or your ikigai, as they say in Japanese, right? Looking for deeper meaning and purpose. And
Hmm.
yeah, I see it basically as a way to give people more information and be more knowledgeable around this particular topic, right? And
Yeah.
certainly you won't see, you know, anything really on the Wikipedia page on the sun in the
Hmm.
book, right? So it's very much, a different kind of perspective, but obviously still keeping keeping it mainstream and exploring some additional ideas, of course, but really, you know, looking at some of the myths and some of the general things we can all agree about the sun, the common beliefs, and then how it affects each part of your body, from the eyes, the heart, the skin, and all of this type of thing. And then just kind of a practical guide also on, holidays, vitamin D, energetic frequency. Also, an interesting section on the electromagnetic spectrum as well, right? So, talking
Hmm.
about the different energetic ways that the sun provides and can provide benefits, but as well as looking an interesting chapter on the symbolism of the sun, right? So, looking at it in a kind of historical, symbolic context for certainly different religions, and how it appears in so many different aspects of life, including like the chakras and the light part of
Hmm.
it, also, appearing in many different ancient books and even as a deity, right? And kind of revered as a sort of religious symbol like that.
Yeah. Well, that's very cool. Now, what's the title again of your book?
So it's the sun, the energy, the light, the frequency. And actually, it builds upon my previous book that I published as well, which was called The Frequency Diet. So I'm kind of having this frequency energetic theme among the books. And yeah, there was a lot of fascinating research I did when I wrote the Sun book, right? The Frequency Diet was very much building on my father's book that he wrote around food and diets and that type of thing. And I kind of gave it a modern, more palatable twist, if you like, and put, frequency into that by trying to do, avoid toxins more frequently, while still, living a kind of modern social lifestyle, right? Not kind of going too crazy about, avoiding every kind of toxin and alienating your friends and that type of thing. So very much looking at the frequency in that respect, but also, frequency in terms of, energetic vibrations of the sun and nature and that type of thing. And yeah, and there were so many different things and enlightening topics that I found when researching the book that, yeah, has inspired me to kind of put all that in a subsequent book as well, which I'm hoping to do by the end of this year. But it's going to be quite a big task as well. So let's see when that one comes out. But yeah, that one's going to be called The Equation, I think, right? So kind of looking at how all energy is an equation, and energy, like in terms of like energy is never lost, right? It's only kind of transferred. So, and
Yes.
and kind of, yeah, bringing in lots of practical elements and experiences I've had in my life, right? To some success so far, and yeah, really just like self-help guides into helping people and trying to leave some kind of legacy behind, right? Where I
Yeah.
made some kind of impact on the world and be
100.
remembered and make my family proud and that type of thing.
I love it. I love it. Now, where can people find your books?
So yeah, they're all available on Amazon. So Amazon.com or Amazon, the local one to your country. And yeah, they're all available there on the Kindle, paperback and hardback.
I love it. Now, where can people find your products?
So PURU, like I said, which is Switzerland's number one natural sun care brand, is on puru.ch. So CH is the Swiss domain, which is the Confederazione Helvetica, right? The traditional name for Switzerland. And yeah, so it's puru.ch, and we deliver um, worldwide on there. We had to restrict US recently a little bit, but we're just working that out. And I am still able to send products to the US. We're still waiting for approval to get our sunscreen in the US, which is proving quite challenging with the department there that needs to approve that. But we're
Mhm.
looking, yeah, we're working on that, and hopefully should be opening up delivery to the US soon, but otherwise most countries worldwide. But also as a part of my mission, I also have another sister brand as well called Pure Turnier. So pureturnier.com delivers in locally in the US. We have a local distribution center in the US, and also in the European Union that delivers to the UK, and also Switzerland, of course. And Pure is more of a all natural skincare brand that's doing premium based natural skincare, anti-aging type skincare, that's more beneficial to the skin. And yeah, I'll just preface on that again and finish that. Yeah, when you're using more natural products, right, it has that higher vibrational frequency.
Yeah.
And again, that kind of will enable you to not only have less toxins, which enables you to have a positive feedback loop when it comes to healing and not having to constantly kind of detox your body, but also, enhancing your energetic field and giving you a better vibe, essentially, right? I think is the modern way to put it.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Well, just to make it clear, the myths are out now and clarity is in. And use in timing and consistency and protect wisely and stack small wins. And if this helped, hit follow, rate us 5 stars, and share it with someone who really needs a healthier relationship with the sun. I am so glad you came on the show because, you really have done a lot of work when it comes to the sun. A lot of people, they just use the products that they find, they grab any old product and they don't realize a lot of times what they're putting on their bodies. And, a lot of people look at the sun as a bad thing when it's not, it's a good thing. Some people are afraid to go in the sun. I know many people, oh, no, no, it's going to make me wrinkle, ah, da, 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 and, there's a lot of myths out there.
Yeah,
And I'm
sure.
glad you came on the show to
Yeah.
really debunk it.
I would just say also, yeah, you can follow me, right? I put a lot of snippets around the book and a lot of general practical advice that comes to mind, right? That's not even in there sometimes on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, right? I'm Captain Puru there. On TikTok, it's at Puru Captain, but I think Captain Puru, you can find me on there. And yeah, I put loads of videos and trying to put out a video a day at the moment, right? If I can maintain it. And it's just sort of practical advice on the sun, natural health, and whatever comes to mind, I think can give people help. Yeah.
I love what you're doing, and I love the education you're putting out there, and I love how you're kind of covering all different aspects of the sun, even when it comes into the more science based, and you're talking about frequency and energy and how that affects our body and it affects everything about us. And so I'm really glad you're doing all this, and you've been a world of information today on our show, and I really thank you so much for being on the show and sharing all this with us.
No, an absolute pleasure. Thanks, Stacey. It was great to chat with you.
Oh, same here, and you have a great day.
All right. Cheers. You too.